Everyone, it's really nice to be here. Thank you so much for joining. You see a few more people trickling in. Please, try and find a seat. There's a few just here. And thanks for joining. My name's Ed. It's my absolute pleasure to be here today at droidcon again. Thank you very much for them to inviting me once more. Just in case you don't know who I am, my name is Ed Holloway-George. I'm a senior Android engineer at ASOS. I like to talk a lot about mobile security, and I like to also talk and blog and tweet and do all sorts about other interesting things, although your experience of that may vary depending on what you find interesting. We have a booth downstairs, so please do come say hello to our team, who have kindly all joined me at the front row. So the rowdy lot in the front are all also from ASOS. You can also find more about this talk and more about me and everything else to do with mobile security on my website, which is spaghetti.dev/talks. So just wait for a few more people to find a seat. There's plenty of them, guys. Excellent, cool. So my talk today is about security champions. Why should we how do we become a security champion? But first of all, I'd like to ask a really important question, which is, why should developers care about mobile security? Now, some of you may be from large companies, some of you may not be, but in any case, why should we as mobile developers care? Well, I'm going to give you a few reasons. The first one is pretty obvious. The mobile attack surface is huge, and it's growing. For context, Android most recently announced 3 billion active devices, and 3 billion is 40% of the world's population. So if you think of it like that, 1 in 4 out of 10 people could be an Android device, and that would accurately reflect. There'd be quite a few of you in here that would be an Android device in that case. That number also doesn't include any devices using alternative stores, so alternative stores, Huawei, Amazon. So that number is coming from Google Play itself. So the attack surface is completely huge. And also, we are now finding ourselves, as you may have seen in the Android Dev Summit and elsewhere in these talks, is that we are finding ourselves in more form factors, Android running in cars, Android Things, which unfortunately is no longer with us, but Android as a platform is everywhere. So that's one reason we should care, is because there is a lot of Android out there. The next reason is that there is growing financial incentives for malicious actors to kind of attack us and attack our apps. The first, I think, critical factor of this has been the recent rise of Web 3.0, or crypto. In fact, I found a really interesting stat that up to $2 billion has been stolen this year in cryptocurrencies alone, which is a 60% increase on last year. And that's incredibly concerning for a number of reasons. Obviously, if you work in crypto, you're going to be probably having a pretty poor night's sleep. But also, it means that there is more financial incentive for attackers to attack our mobile apps. And in fact, 70% of all fraud, so that's not just crypto, that's all fraud, is committed through mobile nowadays. It is the hackers and the scammers sort of platform of choice. So that's another reason why we should also, as developers, care about security. A third reason is we should also care because implementing basic mobile security is really not difficult. It takes years, so this is one of my favorite quotes, it takes years to build a reputation and a few minutes of a cyber incident to ruin it. So basically, we don't want anything bad to happen because it could ruin our career. I did a poll on Twitter just last week to ask what is the most neglected area of mobile app development. And unfortunately for me, security didn't come in first. But second place isn't bad. And as you can see, it's one of those aspects that is really considered to be highly neglected. And I would agree with the poll, actually, that accessibility is another aspect as well. So I think at this point we can all agree that security is something we should be concerned about. But maybe we'd want a few good examples of when things do go wrong. So the first example I will use is Walgreens. Now, for those who don't know what Walgreens is a pharmacy company in the US. They're probably the biggest pharmacy company in the US, and they had a really bad data breach incident in 2020. Essentially, what the app did was it was allowing people to get their prescription drugs online and also have a secure chat with their pharmacist. Unbeknownst to them, they unfortunately had an incident where hackers were able to access their database of people's prescriptions and through their messaging being able to return other people's prescriptions. So if you have a particularly nasty health concern that you wouldn't want your colleagues to know about, unfortunately, the Walgreens app was exposing that to everyone, and it was quite straightforward. And ultimately, what happened to them was they were sued. They were sued in a class action lawsuit for upwards of $5 million, which to Walgreens might not be a lot, but certainly is not a small amount of money by any stretch of the imagination. Another incident that I think is more popular, and probably we might have heard of more in this country, was certainly the Klarna incident in 2021. Now, on May the 27th last year, users of the Klarna app opened their app to find that they were logged in as somebody completely different. You'd open it up, and it would contain the name, address, banking info, and more of different users. Now, whilst this wasn't necessarily a bug within the app, what this actually resulted in was a lot of very angry customers. Now, you might ask yourself, what's worse, $5 million or a lot of very angry customers? Well, in my mind, probably a lot of very angry customers, because there is no monetary value that Klarna have given to see how much they've actually lost through this particular incident. So again, 2 examples of why mobile security is something very important to consider. Another aspect that I'd like to talk about is people. People can often be not so very nice. So another reason we want to be concerned about security is that there are bad actors at play. I wanted to put this slide in to demonstrate just how recently this has been happening. In fact, McAfee, I think, put out a publication last week where they recently found 16 malicious apps within the Google Play Store with over 20 million combined downloads. The apps in question were all very popular utils that the majority of users may search for on their phone, things such as converters between units, images, QR code readers, camera apps, and task managers. So something that the majority of us may have on our phone. And all 16 of those apps contained auto-clicker adware. So essentially what it was doing was it was loading the phone and behind the scenes fake clicking on ads to generate the developer revenue. Scarily enough, all 16 of these apps originally passed the Play Store verification process, but thankfully Google are on it and have removed them now. Another thing that we can always think about is the attack of the clones. If there's any Star Wars fans out there, they'll understand that there's a hell of a lot of clones out there, and certainly when it comes to apps, there are tons. All you have to do is a basic Reddit search, a basic Stack Overflow search to see the amount of people that have said, help, my app has been stolen, and re-released on the store with new information, new ads, and more. And another common problem we also have is because of the ease of reverse engineering, we also have the ability for people to say that they're modding apps, providing games such as with free coins or incentives to download the app, when in fact all you're downloading is malware. So we're 10 minutes in, and I haven't answered probably the critical question, which is, what the heck is a security champion anyway? Well, I'm glad you asked. Thank you for asking. A security champion has a really broad definition across kind of the cybersecurity world. But in my definition, I would say it's got some kind of common hallmarks. Let's take an example. Let's take the ideal example of what a security champion is. Now, let's say that you work at a company and you have a cybersecurity team, which I will represent by this kind of big blob. There we go, I wasn't sure what was going on then. So yes, and there are obviously other teams within your organization of which you're probably a part of. I'm hoping that you're a part of a different team. The champions are in this wonderful Venn diagram, they are the relationship between the cybersecurity team and other teams. You are essentially the Rosetta Stone between the cybersecurity team and your own team. So the role of a champion is to have cybersecurity knowledge, not necessarily be a cybersecurity expert, but to be a cybersecurity champion that can work with your own team, presumably a mobile team, and also the cybersecurity team to add a security mindset to not only your developers, but to your company, and marry the two together. So in a kind of twist, you're actually already a cybersecurity champion, but you're just not yet. So what I will do now is I will talk you through how to become one, and yes, maybe some examples afterwards. So let's say that you want to become a cybersecurity champion, you have no idea how to be one. Well, let's start at the beginning. You've ticked the first box already by showing up today. You have taken some interest in mobile security, so congrats, you've done step 1 without doing anything. Step 2 is looking to improve the security culture in your organization. Now, depending what organization you work in, you might already have a well-established security culture, or you might be starting from zero, and that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. You also need to be somebody that's willing to learn and lead by example. Again, by coming to this talk, I'm going to assume that you are. And finally, you need the ability to be able to pass on knowledge to others internally. So knowledge sharing in this role is quite important. So what do we, as a prospective security champion, want to gain out of this? Well, first of all, we want to gain knowledge in the key areas of mobile security. As you know, mobile security is a very broad subject, and even having looked into it myself, I've only scratched the surface, and I'm sure many of us here who have been doing it for a lot longer than me have only done so as well. We want to write code with security in mind. Now, unfortunately, if you're looking for code, this might not be the talk for you, but there's plenty of great examples out there on how to write secure code, and hopefully my blog is one of those. We want to follow security best practices, which is easier said than done. In a world where there's plenty of conflicting advice, we want to make sure that we are taking our advice and applying it properly. And finally, we want to make sure that we want to gain that our app is a lot more secure as a result of this championship program. So let's go through the end goals. I've put these kind of as the top 3 end goals of what we're kind of after with a security champion program. And the first one is full leadership buy-in. Now, actually, I've put this one as a 3rd place medal because it's not really required. It's really nice to have, and long term, we definitely want full leadership buy-in. But as I will talk through in a bit, that's quite a difficult hurdle sometimes in companies to get. Following that, we also want to make sure that non-security people are performing security-related tasks. Now, when I say non-security people, as we will talk through in a bit, a security championship program isn't just for developers, it's for a business. So it could be people from finance, it could be people from sales. As we all encompassed security championship program to be successful needs multiple people thinking about security in their day-to-day role. And finally, yes, a self-sufficient security champion program, which is what we'll talk about next. So you might be scratching your heads thinking, okay, what is he talking about? How do we even set up a security champion program, and what is one? Well, I'm going to give you a lightning guide now of the kind of key principles of what a security champion program is and how to set one up. The first one is you need a vision. So the vision is, where do we want to end up? How do we capture the long-term goals of this program? Your long-term goals might be maintaining an app's security to a specific level. It might be, I want 10% of the business signed up. It might be, I want, my developers to be certified. The next thing is finding out the participants. Now, to set up a champion program, it might be easier to start with who you know. So it might be developers. It could be, sales. It could be whoever you want to work with directly with cybersecurity. The next thing you need to consider is your environment. What kind of company are you working at? If you're working at a large multinational company with hundreds and hundreds of developers, it might be best to start off relatively small and work out. Or if you're working in a rather smaller company, it might be prudent to get as many people involved as possible. Next up, we've got the concept. How do we want the participants to behave? What do we want to gain from our participants to make sure that we are championing security? And then we have incentive. I think everybody needs incentive. Why would people want to become a champion program? For some people, it's status. For some people, it's financial. For some people, it's just bragging rights. Next up, you've got delivery. Is how do we work together, and how do we show success? So this is another aspect that you will need to consider. And finally, tuning, which is probably most important of all. How do I take all of what I've done so far and iterate on that and make sure that my security program is constantly evolving? So with that, I'd like to give you some quick wins, some quick ideas of how to kick off your security champion program should you not have one. I say you can do it today. You're probably best off waiting till the end of the conference. But the first thing to do is find a handful of like-minded engineers or individuals. So if you work in a company with a number of developers, it might be the person sat next to you right now. Find a handful of like-minded engineers and get them together to do a session. Maybe something like a regular lunch and learn, a brown bag, something where you can spend some time in a relaxed environment, chatting about security, and also improving your knowledge. You also want to make noise internally about what you're doing. You want to make sure that the right people are hearing about security and making sure that you are, the voice for your company in your team for security. And finally, of course, you want to raise the profile of security tasks within your app, which you might have to do by speaking to your manager and/or CISO. So, I've waffled on about all of this, but has this actually been applied and worked elsewhere? Well, the answer is, of course, yes. The example I'll give is Fivetran, who are a global data warehousing company based in California. And they started their program in May. Now, bearing in mind that they started their program in May, they're at a relatively early stage of their championship program. However, they found that initially, by focusing on participation, training, and awareness, they've had quite good engagement. Now, they have had external speakers come in to talk about security, and that's proved very successful. Over time, since May, through the participation, training, and awareness, they've been able to get more staff hands-on in security action tasks and made sure that people are getting their hands dirty when working with security. And actually, critically, to do this, they've implemented gamification. Unfortunately, I haven't got a picture of what they've done, but they essentially have a ninja belt system where people, by performing security tasks, are essentially gamified. There's essentially a leaderboard of who is the best security champion. And that's worked remarkably well. And that's something you can implement on a rudimentary basis through spreadsheets, or you can implement or roll your own solution, however you want to do gamification. And that's seen great success, to the extent where 10% of the entire company has now signed up, and I'm told that's about 130 champions. So it's 130 people in the business, not just in development, but all across the business, who are now actively working in security. So a security championship program works. But let's talk about maybe how we can get it started right away. So let's talk about Lunch and Learn #1. You're convinced, I've somehow magically convinced you to create a security champion program, but what do you do for Lunch and Learn #1? Well, I'm going to give you 3 really quick ideas which can get you started. So the very first idea is to perform SAST, which is static application security testing, on your application and discuss the results internally. Now, some of you will possibly be already using SAST tools in your app, but if you're not and you need a very quick solution to get started, the one I would recommend is MobSF. It's free to use, it's open source, and here's an example of an app that I wrote in 5 minutes, so please don't take anything for granted there. That is literally just a sample app. Now, there's quite a number of great tools that come with MobSF, the first one being a kind of general security score and overview of any security concerns. So if you're using this internally in a security program, you can quite actively see changes and see progress. As you can see, you also get a prioritized list of security issues with links to further information once you click on them. So to get this view, all you really need to do is upload your APK or AAR file, and all of this information is kind of generated for you on a web page. Another view here, you can also see here that you also get further information about your apps, so such as how many activities you have, how many services you have, and kind of other tracking information as well. So you get a really good overview very, very quickly of your application's kind of security status. Another really cool thing about MobSF as well that you could implement is performing dynamic analysis. So it's not only a SAST tool, it's also a dynamic analysis tool that allows you to run your application and perform dynamic testing whilst running your application. Unfortunately, I don't have an example of that in here in this talk, but is something that will be coming soon. So once you've kind of run a SAST tool, maybe at your first lunch and learn, what are the next steps? Well, the first thing to do is to take your report to your team and management and scare them. because chances are, if you've never done this before, you may uncover stuff that you weren't aware of. So the best thing to do is to scare them with the pretty numbers and tell them that it's you need to action them. So obviously, the next thing you will do is action the high priority issues, and that's something a security championship program can really help with. It can help prioritize security bugs or security concerns and make sure that they are kind of in part of your regular sort of workflow. Again, with tools like MobSF, you also get the ability to show measurable improvement in the long term, and as well as actively monitor them going forwards. And actively monitoring, I think, is a critical thing that we all need to be doing. So with the first one out of the way, we can talk about the next thing, which might be to ensure your ProGuard and R8 rules are strict enough. Now, we're very fortunate to be joined by a couple of people from Guard Square here, so thank you for joining. This, I think, is one of the greatest secrets that I wish I'd known about earlier, and this is the ProGuard Playground by Guard Square. This is a editable website where you can add your ProGuard rules and test them against your binary. Now, this is fantastic for a number of reasons. The first mainly being that it's on the web page, it's very accessible, and second of all, because it doesn't require your app to be built. Once you upload the binary, you can change the rules and see results in real time, which is absolutely fantastic. So as you can see here, I've added some rules, and here I can see my uploaded APK or jars, classes, methods, and fields. And as you can see, you also get an interactive display of your custom rules in action. So once I've changed my rules, I want to see how they affect my application. And like I say, no app building required. So I would definitely say this is a hidden gem in the Android world. So be sure to take note of this. So in our Lunch and Learn, we've gone through and we've changed our rules. And the next step would be to use the playground to improve our rules, test for any unexpected behaviors. Of course, there's always going to be unexpected behaviors if you don't know what you're doing. So make sure you explore the ProGuard documentation. It's quite extensive, and you can do a lot of great things, including, but not limited to, getting smaller, optimized, and secure builds. And like I say, there's a droidcon bonus. They're downstairs, so go say hello. So with that, we've gone through two ideas. The third idea is to decompile your app and take a poke around. Now, I'm sure that some of you will already know how to do this, but just in case you've never done any reverse engineering at all, of course, please use this responsibly. Do not go around reverse engineering things you're not allowed to. But your APK is essentially just a zip file with extra spice. You can rename your APK to APK or .zip even, unzip it, and then you'll find a wild folder with lots of funky files. Here's an example of a folder with lots of funky files. And this is your innards of your APK. They contain DEX files, which are Dalvik executables, and they're similar to Java class files, but they run on on Android's JVM. They contain Dalvik bytecode, and with this bytecode, it is possible to convert it back to its original source code, although that is a lossy process. So, with that kind of knowledge in mind, we can use a tool such as JADX, which will decompile Android files. It decompiles pretty much all of them. I was surprised by the list. It does the APKs, the AARs, class files, DEX, Smalley, and pretty much any other Android file you can think of, and puts it back into kind of a Java readable format. Now, this is kind of useful for a number of reasons. It will show us, first of all, our decompiled filed classes, packages, and methods, so we can see exactly what we are getting in our APK. And we also get, like I say, the Java representation of our code. And this is exactly what a reverse engineer will do to try and exploit your application. So the next steps with this is to use this approach to make sure you aren't exposing yourself, if you pardon the pun. If you can reverse engineer your app and understand what it's doing based on the code, so can anyone else. So you want to make extra sure that your obfuscation is working and making it more difficult. Obfuscation, of course, is not a perfect solution. If somebody's got enough time, they can go through and try and work out what your app's doing, but you want to make it as hard as possible. Think of the Swiss cheese model. You want to make it as difficult as you can. And with that, you want to make sure that you look into other tools such as Sneak, SonarQube, AppSweep, and there's plenty more out there to take a look at. I would personally recommend all of those, actually. They're all excellent in their own way. But if you do one thing today, please visit securitychampionshipsuccessguide.org. This is a website that essentially does what I've tried to do today, but in a lot more coherent way and a lot more detail. It's an excellent guide written by a guy called Dustin, who's been fantastic, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to him. And believe it or not, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've learned something. I will stick around just outside for Q&As if there are any. But yeah, please do check out my website. The slides and more information and links will be available there shortly. Thank you.